I use the first man's love to finish school. I use the second man's connections to get in the room. I use the third man's child to stay there. Some people say that makes me dirty, but when you crawl out of the kind of place I came from, your hands were never clean to begin with. My name is Vivian. This story is going to make some people angry. That's fine. I grew up in a small town in rural Mississippi, the kind that doesn't appear on maps people use for anything other than passing through. My family was the kind where the boys got new cleats every season, and I wore my cousin's hand-me-downs until the elastic gave out. I wanted to take art classes in middle school. My father laughed, said art was for people who already had money, and I should spend my time on something that would bring something in. I decided that day I was going to leave and never look back. I got a scholarship to State University 4 hours away. My mother pressed $300 into my hand at the bus station, everything she'd saved without my father knowing, and said, "That's all I've got, baby." I dragged a second-hand suitcase onto the bus without turning around. The first 2 years I worked 3 jobs: dining hall, library desk, tutoring. I ate whatever was free or close to it. Fall of sophomore year, I met Caleb outside the art building. He was a junior computer science, wearing a faded flannel that had been washed so many times it had no color left. He pretended he'd bought too many granola bars and offered me one. I found out later he'd been watching me for weeks. Caleb was genuinely good. When he found out about my situation, he started doing extra tutoring gigs and quietly loading money onto my meal card. He bought me real art supplies, the kind that actually worked, not the $9 sets that bled through the paper. Cold nights walking back from the studio, he'd hold both my hands in his jacket pocket and breathe warm air on my fingers and say, "Keep painting. I'll handle the rest. We're going to have our own place someday." We split a bowl of ramen once when money was tight. He gave me the egg without me asking, and without making anything of it. He always had this look when he talked about the future. Eyes bright, completely certain, like the whole thing was already decided. He wanted a steady job, a house, a family, simple and clear and real. He'd pull me close and say, "I've got you. We're going to be okay." I cried on his shoulder once. That was real. I want to be honest about that part. Everything changed when I got into the MFA program in New York. My thesis advisor was Professor Harlan, 50, well known in the contemporary art world, the kind of man whose name opens doors before you finish saying it. He took us to gallery openings and collector dinners. I had never smelled perfume like that on women before. The wine in people's hands probably cost more than Caleb's monthly salary. Harlan told me I had something. Talent, yes, but also hunger, which he said is rarer and more valuable. He said the art world wasn't just about what you made. It was about who was in the room when you made it. You understand that, don't you, Vivian? I understood perfectly. Winter break. Caleb picked me up at the train station, practically bouncing. He had gotten a small raise. He had found an apartment listing he wanted to show me. He took me to the same diner we'd always gone to and talked the whole meal about who at work had gotten married, how much more they needed for a down payment, what the neighborhood was like. I sat across from him and heard it all, and somewhere in the middle of it, the food started to taste wrong. His voice wasn't bad, his plan wasn't bad, it was just small. The window of the life he was describing was the same size as the window in our old apartment. I could see the whole thing from where I was sitting, and there is nothing behind it. On the train back to New York, I got a message from Harlan, a photo of his studio at night. "Come by this weekend. Want to talk about your project." I knew what that meant. I looked down and saw a message from Caleb that had come in while I was reading Harlan's. "It's getting cold. Mailing you a scarf. Stay warm." There is a clumsy smiley face after it. I typed a long reply, deleted it, sent 3 words. "We should talk." He called 17 times that night. I didn't pick up. My roommate said he showed up outside the dorm and waited until 2 in the morning. I walked out the back entrance the next morning wearing the cashmere scarf Harlan had given me at a gallery dinner the month before. Did it hurt? Yes. But I was so tired of being cold. Harlan opened doors. My work got shown. Small corners of group exhibitions at first, but people started to know my name. I learned how to talk in those rooms, how to hold a glass, how to listen in a way that made people feel like they were the only person speaking. He proposed once. I said no. I'd seen the photos on his phone. Other students, other women. Professor's wife was a position that could be vacated. I wasn't interested in something that fragile. The real shift came at my own show. I overheard 2 collectors near the back. "She's good, but she's Harlan's girl. That's all this is." I stood there with a glass of wine and let that land. They were right. Talent without capital behind it is just decoration. I needed my own ticket, not borrowed passage on someone else's. I spent 3 months on the Whitfield family, old money, manufacturing, a foundation that sponsored contemporary art acquisitions. The younger son, Carter, was 28, athletic, not particularly complicated. He liked rock climbing and obscure jazz, and had strong opinions about single malt scotch. I joined the same climbing gym, hired a coach, learned enough about jazz to hold a conversation, showed up at a foundation event, and was exactly who he would find interesting. Curious, a little independent, not trying too hard. We talked for an hour. He asked for my number. 3 months later, I told him I was pregnant. I let my eyes fill up just enough. I said I wasn't trying to trap him, I could handle it myself. He panicked. Families like his don't do scandals. The wedding was large and fast. My parents sat in the back row, not knowing what to do with their hands. My brother tried to get into a photo. I smiled and held them in place with a look. I knew in that moment I had cut the last thread to where I came from. I didn't become a trophy. I had never intended to. After our son was born, I started making small investments with money I'd set aside. When they paid off, I brought the numbers to Carter's father, not as a daughter-in-law asking permission, but as someone showing work. He looked at me differently after that. Our daughter was born 2 years later. By then I was managing a portion of the family's art acquisition fund. The first time I closed a deal in a board meeting, in English without notes, on my own terms. I saw Carter's expression and his father's small nod. Now I live in a penthouse with a view of the whole city. I run a foundation that funds scholarships for girls from places like where I came from. Carter does what Carter does. We are excellent partners. Sometimes I can't sleep. On those nights, I find myself looking at an old classmate's social media. In the photos, Caleb is holding a baby, standing in a field with his wife, sunflowers behind them. He's smiling the same way he smiled when he handed me that granola bar outside the art building sophomore year. Clumsy, warm. There's a hollow feeling for a moment. I won't pretend there isn't, but I don't regret it. People call me dirty, cold, calculating. But here's what I know. When you're climbing out of the mud with your bare hands, you don't get to be selective about what you grab. Straw or sincerity, it's all a handhold. I lost something real along the way. I know that. I traded a true heart for a life where I never have to kneel in front of anyone. I use the first man's love to finish school, the second man's connections to get in the room, the third man's child to stay there. You tell me if that's a loss or a win.